How's everybody? In person, this is great. You guys fire away. I don't have much to kick off with, so go for it.
First off, good to see you.
Yep.
First off, good to see you. I just want to see, is this your first public fan event?
No, we've done a couple things on campus, but not, this is the first time off campus. Yeah.
First time off campus. Okay. June 1 is obviously a massive date coming up, and just wondering how are you and staff feeling about getting recruiting going and basically getting the machine going again?
I mean, we're excited. There's a lot of moving parts in the month of June for us and for everybody, for that matter. You know, obviously, with recruiting opening back up and recruits being able to come on campus, that's a big deal from an unofficial visit standpoint, from an official visit standpoint, from a summer camp standpoint. But the big thing I keep reminding the staff about is not to get lost in here as our own football team. We start summer school and we start our summer workouts here June 2nd, which is a key component to the immediate future as much as recruiting is for our future moving forward. So it's a big month for us on a lot of different levels.
Steve, can you elaborate on why the in-person part of recruiting is so important and why being able to see guys that camp matters so much in the evaluation process?
Well, you know, I think in person, me personally, I'm a big relationship-based recruiter. I like the face-to-face contact. I love the interaction. You know, everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. I like, you know, I try to be as personable as I can be. I try to be as transparent as I can be, and I think that sometimes that's helpful for me in recruiting. So I do think that goes a long way, and for our staff, and getting to know the recruits and their families in person. We do a lot of our stuff obviously on FaceTime and on Zoom and different things, but in person, there's nothing like, you know, just being there and spending that time. And then the in-person evaluation is critical too. You know, there's a lot of tape right now that we've been watching. We haven't been able to be out recruiting. I really think the last time was probably last January before that last signing date. So it's been quite some time of being out and watching kids actually run and look at them in person and get an idea of their bone structure and body structure. And there's a lot that goes into that. And, you know, we pride ourselves on our evaluation. And so for an opportunity to see a kid in person, to see him work out in person, I think goes a long way, especially for the young men that maybe are on the line. You know, what are we doing with them? Can clean up that picture a little bit for us.
You know, after spring, Coach, you know, you had a chance to look at the film and evaluate everyone. How much of your depth chart did you feel like pretty was like solidified, and then how many more question marks do you have going into the fall?
I really don't think anything's solidified. You know, we're a competition-based, you know, organization, and you know, not that I don't want anyone to feel comfortable, but I want everybody to feel like they're competing for something. And, you know, the moment I relax, hey, I got my spot, I'm good. Now I'm not maybe pushing myself or getting pushed by somebody else to get even better throughout the summer and through fall camp. So, like I said at the end of spring ball, we've got a lot of work to do, and we will do it. But that, I don't think, in my opinion, nobody is set in stone. We've got to earn what we get, and we've got 15 practices under our belt right now. So we've got a lot of work to do to get ourselves prepared for a very challenging schedule.
Steve, without being specific, no names, how do coaches like yourself feel about this new thought by some high school seniors opting out before they go to college?
Yeah, I mean, I put a lot of thought into it. You know, I think a little bit of it is, it's kind of the trickle-down effect, right? You know, I think, I don't know how many ever years ago when NFL players started holding out, right? Wanted more guaranteed money, wanted more, you know, a better contract, or they wanted to go to another team. And then all of a sudden, you had college players not playing in a bowl game, right? Right before the draft, before they were going to the NFL. And then all of a sudden, last season, we had college players opting out and deciding not to play. And I was just thinking about this. I know 3 off the top of my head of players that opted out that ended up being top 10 NFL draft picks that didn't even play last season in college football. And now here we are in high school football talking about it. So, you know, I don't know necessarily what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. as it pertains to the university, the individuals, the kids on our team, maybe for their future in the NFL. Our biggest thing that we're trying to do is support the high school coaches and knowing the job that they have to do, and B, support the families and the young men that are maybe even talking about making this type of a decision. So I think this is bigger than one individual. I think this is going to be something that we have to wrap our heads around, and what is this going to look like, and how are we going to what's our approach going to be? Because, I don't think this is a one-off, just one high school kid. I think this is somewhat of a trickle-down effect that we're dealing with from professionals to college athletes, and now, potentially seeing it at the high school level. So it's a relatively big issue that we've got to start to wrap our brains around.
How do you see it potentially affecting the coaching judgment? Scholarships and freshers, you only have so many. Kid opts out, you can't watch him play. Another kid emerges that maybe you weren't thinking about. How could you affect him?
I think that's recruiting in general. That's ongoing. The evaluation process is ongoing. I think the one thing that's happened that is aided in this is the recruiting process has sped up. Guys are getting recruited younger and younger. The access to film, guys are playing younger at their high schools. I mean, there's more freshmen and sophomores playing than ever before at the varsity level at really good schools. There are more camps, there's more off-site, non-scholastic camps that guys are getting access to where there's film, and it's more of that combine-like atmosphere where there's access to that film. So I just think the whole thing of recruiting has gotten sped up. A lot of these young men that are going to be seniors this fall have been getting recruited for 2, 3, 4 years now. And so that idea that we don't have an evaluation on them really doesn't hold true. So there's a lot of factors in recruiting. I do think that that's always the tough decision when there's that late bloomer, the kid that starts playing his best football in his senior year of high school, and we've got to make tough decisions on it. But that's never changed. I just think now it's not as common, but it still happens, and we got to make those tough calls.
Excuse me, along those lines, the transfer portal is such a huge change for college football in particular. How do you guys kind of navigate that with the high school recruits and wanting to get a great foundation for this program to build here?
I'm a believer in, when you take transfers, you take them to fill a need, in essence. I was a transfer myself. I went to USC at a high school as a baseball player, went back to junior college, and then went on to play at BYU for 2 years. But I was trying to choose a school at that time where they had a need for a quarterback. And I don't think the transfer portal, how we view it, is much different. Do we have a need at a position where that player can fulfill that need for the short term while we develop a younger player? Perfect world for us. Yeah, we develop all the players. They come into our program as freshmen. We develop them. They work their way through 3-4 years down the road. They go on and hopefully have an opportunity to play in the NFL. That's not always the case. Things happen. Injuries occur. Our own transfers occur. We miss. There's no science to this in recruiting. We try to do the best we can, and all of a sudden you have a void at a position that ultimately you've got to try to fulfill. So that's kind of our approach to it. I know everybody's got a different one, but it's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch. I'm a little concerned, quite frankly, about the high school player because inevitably, when we take a transfer, that counts against us. That counts as an initial against us. That's one less high school player we can take. And that goes for everybody around the country. This isn't exclusive to the University of Texas. Well, what happens is you start adding those numbers up. Your 100, 200, 300, 400, 450, 500 transfer kids we take, that's 500 less high school kids that are getting scholarships at whatever level that is. That's my concern, more so than giving kids opportunities in college to go somewhere else and be immediately eligible. The concern more for me is, what are those high school kids doing now? And what does their opportunity look like? And I don't know. I think this is probably something, this is year one. We'll take a look at it, and it'll probably be something that's going to be needed to get re-looked at and maybe tweak some to A, help the universities with some of their initial scholarship numbers, but also B, how are we helping taking care of the high school kids so they're not getting lost in this thing?
Steve, name, image, and likeness just made it through the legislature, and it's now on Governor Abbott's desk. NCAA is going to do something about it. Are you worried about kids who think, I'm just going to sign with Texas, come to school, and make a lot of money off the brand? And are you worried that they're going to put in the work that goes along with it?
Well, I'd be worried if we didn't do our homework. I mean, I think that's all part of our responsibility and job from a recruiting standpoint, right? What is a young man's initiatives and goals, and what's his drive, and what does that look like, right? We're an academic institution that A, wants to graduate our student athletes. B, we want to develop great young men into men. We want to win championships, and then ultimately we want to give our players an opportunity to fulfill their dreams of playing in the National Football League. The NIL thing is interesting, but like you said in your question, I don't know if everybody really knows what this is going to look like. There's been no real parameters laid for what this is going to look like. So until they do that, it's hard to say how this is going to look, or what the approach is going to be for a recruit. It all sounds really good, and there's all these great ideas out there right now, but quite frankly, we still don't know the parameters of what it's going to look like for us. And until they do, then we can start to wrap our brain around, okay, what does this look like from a recruiting standpoint? Is it an advantage to us? Is it a disadvantage to us? Are we recruiting the right types of kids and individuals and families that want to be part of the University of Texas and our program for the right reasons, or maybe for some reasons that don't align with us? And so those are just going to be new challenges. It's like everything, you have to adapt in what we do. And we've been changed and forced to change quite a bit over the last year or two. And you either change or you don't. And I think ultimately you have to change if you want to keep progressing and being on the cutting edge of the things that are happening.
Steve, on a different topic, Earl Campbell is legendary in this state, in this city. I know he helps with the lives of your players, but how about yourself? Your relationship with him? You guys have had some similar issues, personal issues, and
Yeah.
just kind of Earl is Earl, man. I'd like to know what your relationship is with him and how he's helped you.
So I got to meet Earl very early when I got there, and I love him. I had to admit to him, when I was a kid, right above my bed, I had an Earl Campbell poster. I don't know if you guys remember those Sports Illustrated posters. I mean, he was like, he's bigger than life to me, I mean, when you watched him on TV and his jersey's getting ripped off and no one can tackle him, it was like, and then all of a sudden to meet him in person was really humbling. And we have had some of the same experiences in our lives, and it's great to be able to talk to somebody who has similar experiences, and but also bleeds burnt orange, and that can give me a lot of the history of the program. Has been great for me. He's been a great advocate. I've even gone and I bought one of his sweatshirts that he's been selling, and I've got this hoodie zip up that's got a big picture of Earl, and it's kind of an Oiler jersey, and so I wore that one day. But I love Earl. He's still an icon to me, and he is an icon, but to me it's like living legend, right? I mean, that's kind of how I do it.
A couple high schools pushed their spring practice back past June 1st deadline. Do you make plans to send coaches out on the road to do live evaluation?
Well, at our level, we're not allowed to go on the road in June. So all the June 1st did for us is allow recruits to come on and high school coaches to come onto our campus. We're not allowed to recruit off-site. We won't be able to do that until the fall.
The full weekends that you have in June, now that recruits are back, it's been a long time. Anything going to be different, or have you seen those weekends?
Well, I think the biggest change, I think you're seeing universally across college football, and definitely for us, that they started a couple of years back, but this summer is a lot more impactful, is the summer official visits. And, historically, you'd have a young man come on your campus in the summer unofficially, or come to camp, and then official visit in the fall. And the trend now is to take your official visits in the summer. They move signing date up to December. Now we have 2 signing dates in December and February. So I think a lot of the young men and their families, they have a little more time in the summer in June to get to your campus, to really get around you from a personal relationship standpoint, and then ultimately make their decision in December. So for me, probably the biggest difference this June, outside of them just being back on campus, is the idea that, you know, they're official visits, and there's a lot of them, and it's time consuming to go along with summer camp, to go along with our unofficial visitors that are doing that, to go along with our own team. So this is a big month for us as a staff.
Steve, probably this is more of a question for in season, but as someone who's been the play caller and the head coach, how do you balance those two, especially a higher profile program like Texas?
That's normal to me. You know, this is just how I've always done it. You know, I don't know. I really don't know not doing it this way. It's pretty comfortable from a game plan standpoint. Things won't change for me. I've always enjoyed being the head coach and the play caller because I do believe that you can kind of control the tempo of the game. You can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can milk the clock, when to use your timeouts, how many possessions are left in the game. So I've enjoyed that, but for me, this is the norm.
Sorry, you talked about winning with big people, line of scrimmage, and what your championship teams are made of. After getting a look at your defensive line, your offensive line this spring, do you feel like there's a good baseline there to where you can build what you've got to eventually get to that point?
I do. I was very impressed in spring with our interior defensive front. I think we've got good depth, and that was without Sweat being there. I think we've got good depth on our interior defensive line. We're talented. I think that's a great starting point for winning football. You know, I think we're fortunate. We've got a lot of veteran-type depth on the offensive line. What the right mix and who's is exactly at what spot, I think we're going to have to really sort through here come fall camp. But it is a good starting point when you've got veterans who have played football, who are physical up front. It's a really good starting point because I do believe to win championships, you've got to be good up front.
And then real quick, how is Jake Smith with the foot injury, and how is Jake's
He's back. He'll be ready to go with us starting next week in our summer program.
Guys, we got time for 2 last ones.
A lot of the preseason magazine stuff, you know, has Oklahoma, Iowa State, Texas third. That's kind of universal. When you go on the rubber chicken tour this summer, talk to fan groups. What are you going to tell them about where Texas is picked, and how good are you going to do? I mean, all those fan questions.
I'd say, those things are irrelevant. I mean, I don't know. I wish those people that would make those predictions would come out at the end of the year and then give them a grade, how many right and wrong they got. It's like the draft, right? All these guys they're experts before the draft, but they never come back the next year and show their picks that they had the next year. So the reality of it is, you know, we're going to compete our butt off. We're going to prepare really well. Nobody's going to work harder. Nobody's going to prepare better. And you know, come every Saturday, we want to be the best versions of ourselves. We want to put our best foot forward and make sure we put ourselves in position to win football games in the fourth quarter, and then have the football IQ to handle those special situations when they present themselves in the fourth quarter of games.
What does Alfred Collins need to do to take the next step?
I think the biggest thing for Alfred is just the maturity, right? You're a true freshman. You come in. You have some kind of highlight plays, but there's a level of consistency that I think mature players play with, and it's in there for Alfred. We see it. It's getting better, but that's going to be the driving force between myself, Coach Wikowski, Coach Davis, to get him to that point. And that's a natural progression for young players that are very talented early in their career.
One last one.
So, Coach, I guess the summer workouts end up kind of being like the phase 3 of everything before you start getting into training camp. What are you wanting to see from that? What are you wanting to accomplish? And, you know, can you just tell a little bit more about that phase?
Well, I think phase 3 is it's summer conditioning is what it is. It's hard. It's hot. You know, I think we start to find our identity a little bit more as a team, not necessarily from a scheme standpoint. You know, we implement the rest of the freshmen that didn't come mid-year. We implement the transfers that come on board. So we really got to come together as a team. We've got to get physically fit. We've got to get stronger. We've got to get bigger. You know, at the end of spring ball, I met with every player individually and told them the things that I think were their strengths, the things that maybe were their weaknesses, and then the things that they needed to work on. And so in the summer, over the next 8 weeks, is their chance to really start to dive into those things from a strength and conditioning standpoint, a fundamental standpoint, or even a scheme standpoint with their coaches to start to dive into areas where they can improve to put themselves in the best position to be successful come fall camp.
Thank you, Coach.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you.